Dallas Cowboys or
the Cowboys don't have any defense.
Yeah, Capitals didn't have any defense last week. The answer is at least the Cowboys try. That's the
answer. You guys are so. All right, it's time.
What you gonna do about this echo?
I don't know.
Here we go.
We echo like crazy. Here we go. All right, we're back with the special edition of Talking Preps. I hope the echo stays away. I hope. Maybe not. But I'm Langston Works Green, Charlotte-Mecklenburg. We got Dale Ross, Carolina Varsity. Welcome back, Dale. Missed you.
Howdy.
Got my man Gary Richmond. You guys been seeing him on the basketball show.
Yeah, Two Sports,
that's right. Coach Grice, Hopewell High. And sitting here for my man Brian, we got Scott Chadwick, who's going to tell us what time it's coming. Winter is coming. You gotta,
yeah. Well, I'm going to be saying, don't I got to roll my sleeves?
Yeah, you got to show the gun. You got to show the gun.
Man.
And back from his overseas assignment is my main man, Chris Hughes.
Guys, you don't know how happy it is for me to be back. Great to be here in y'all's presence and anxious to talk some sports. But, man, it's great to be back on the team.
Yeah, and then down below me, we got Alex Bass, been with our basketball show. We're going to call him over for football.
Good afternoon, or good evening to all. I know it's not particularly a good evening for some things we know content-wise, but it's still good to see all of you.
Yeah, no, it's nice to have everybody back. I apologize for the echo, guys. I hope that we can get past it before the night's over with. But it is annoying. But I want to start out the big news. CMS is pausing high school sports until February the 15th. We've got a draft of the NCHSAA do realignment. There's so much to discuss. Swimming's not going to go anymore. Volleyball and cross country can keep going, but they can't practice. And Coach Chadwick and Coach Grice, I want to start with you guys because your boots on the ground. Tell me about your emotions right now, Coach Chadwick, about football's going to start a week late and everybody else is going to pause.
Disappointed, no doubt about it. Really kind of felt like over the last month or so, got back to a real sense of normalcy, at least somewhat with the kids. And it was good to be around the kids. It was good to see them have something positive in their lives after so many months of what we've dealt with. And just this kind of hit us out of nowhere. Nobody was expecting this. Nobody thought this was going to happen. And like I said, just really disappointed and having to deal with some kids today that are going through a really wide range of emotions.
Yeah. Grace.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, it's especially in a situation where, of course, all of us here are parents, and we've had to discipline the child. There's always a reason, rationale. There's something that makes sense as to why something's being taken away. I think in this situation, what makes it so hard for us and for everyone else is, as football community, we've been doing things pretty much the right way. I mean, I think overwhelmingly, guys who have plans in place follow the rules and guidelines, and this is our reward is to take it away. So I think that's been really hard to reconcile for our players, coaches, parents, as a whole. And I think that's the bigger thing that we're all having to deal with.
Yeah. How much will this affect you guys as football coaches as you're trying to get ready and not having that extra week of practice that everybody else is going to have? Coach Chadwick, you can start.
Well, it's not just that week. It's, the off-season weeks leading up to it as well. I mean, we're, 4 to 5 days a week right now. So having that taken away from you as well, not just the 1 week of actual football practice, is critical. And, I don't know that you can, send kids out there for a game on February 26th, whatever that day is, if we're not going to go back till February 15th. I think that's I'm not sure that's even a safe thing to do.
Yeah. Grace, your opinion?
Yeah, I think Coach Chadwick hit it on the head. I mean, I would hope there's a better plan in place than for us to go back February 15th and then to start playing football on February 26th. I don't think that is a smart decision at all. So, the bigger thing is, I mean, like, I think, with all these weeks that have accumulated with us being out as, compared to other teams, and even within our conference, like you have other teams in our conference who have gone longer. And when you start adding the time up, it starts to become a very significant advantage when you talk about competing on the same playing field. So it is frustrating. But again, our message to our kids is, I mean, where we've started with our program, I mean, our whole things were built for it. We're going to continue to do whatever they say and be ready to play whenever they ask us to.
Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit about football. We're definitely going to come back to it, but I want to talk a little bit about basketball. Coach Chadwick, we got one of your coworkers on screen there. I think you know him pretty well.
Our offices are fairly close.
Got Scott Taylor, Myers Park High School. Coach Taylor, basketball, you've only played one game. And basketball's on pause for 2 weeks, and we're looking to have 1 week before the playoffs start. What kind of dilemma does that put you guys in?
For us, it almost makes it impossible for us to have anything, any opportunity to go to the playoffs under the current format. The state regulations right now are a minimum of 6 games, and you can make up You can make up games to COVID or to weather, but there's still a limit on 3 per week. So even if we come back on the 15th and we get 3 in that week, our season's done at that point. And honestly, to kind of echo what Coach Grice said, I don't know how I have kids go home for 4 weeks and do nothing or not anything that's constructive necessarily, nothing organized, and ask them to come back on a Monday and then play 2 games that week. I don't know that that's fair. We played last night double overtime after having a 10-day quarantine. We had 1 practice before. And I can tell you that right there was tough. And I know other people have dealt with that in similar situations. But to take 4 weeks off and then come back and try to pick up and play 2 games when you're done at the end of those 2 games, I'm just not sure with any meaning attached to those games if that's fair to do to kids, young kids who have spring, summer ball ahead of them, or even seniors who want just a chance to play. How reasonable that is to expect that that's realistic.
Yeah. Alex?
Well, I think what we're seeing right here is the situation, and I've spoken about this a number of times with Langston and a lot of other people, that, to be on screen right here with Scott Taylor and Scott Chadwick both at the same time. And I know everyone heard what I said last week, and I stand by what I said, but at the same time, I'll be the first person to say that these 2 gentlemen on the screen right here this is a model of heartbreak right here, because you look at this pandemic and you see the opportunities that could have been, and we can name a number of Myers Park student athletes who would have had tremendous opportunities with both of these gentlemen right here. And to see the way it's played out is unthinkable. It's beyond anyone's control. But it is heartbreaking to look at it that way and look back and see how all of this is played out. I know hindsight is 20/20, but Coach Chadwick and Coach Taylor, with kids seeking to leave early more and more now, and do you wonder for what and why? I know hindsight's 20/20, but there were some pretty special things that could have been in store this year, and my heart breaks. How do you look at that, seeing how everything has played out here? I'd love to hear from both of you.
Well, in our case, obviously we had some opportunities, to play in Bank of America Stadium, to play on ESPN. those things were once in a lifetime opportunities that our kids lost out on. And, from a player perspective, I keep telling everybody, when we play in the spring, I'm going to be missing, 9 guys that would have played with me in the fall, either from seniors that are enrolling early or underclassmen that went to other states to play. So yeah, we're missing a lot of things, but the probably the one guy that Scott and I share, Drake May, my conversation with Drake when he came to me in, November, December, whenever it was, and asked about, what did I think about him going to Carolina early? This was actually one of the reasons I gave him, that I wasn't going to try to convince him to stay, because I didn't want to be in a situation where we were sitting here in February and CMS shuts us down. I didn't have confidence that, that they wouldn't do that to the kid, and he'd be sitting here twiddling his thumbs in February instead of, being at Carolina. So that was one of the main reasons why I wasn't trying to convince him to stay.
Coach Taylor.
Yeah, Alex, it's a good question. And, I'll be honest, I hadn't really thought about it a ton because we were so excited just to have the opportunity to play the 14 games we were given. We were getting to compete for a conference championship. We were playing 14 games in league. I know we're going to talk about some realignment stuff, and this may be the last year we've had a league. We've got some pretty special rivalries with Butler and Independence that have carried on for years, that we were looking forward to trying to finish out. So although we had a similar non-conference schedule where we were going to go to Dorman and play, we were going to the Outer Banks to play Greenfield and Kinston. We were playing Millbrook and Leesville Road, like some things that hopefully we can get back. But this group doesn't get them back. But more than that, now they've missed out on a chance to play for a conference championship and have this chance to be together as a team. That's what makes me sad, is these 13 guys don't get this opportunity back.
Okay, here's my question to both of you. Spread is crazy right now in Mecklenburg County, but there's no – I talked to Q Tucker today. She said she hasn't seen any evidence that high schools are super spreaders or even spreaders at all. Does it look funny if CMS is allowing sports but putting class in remote because of an outbreak, and people look at how bad the numbers are and see kids out there playing in masks, and most of the kids are kind of playing in a handkerchief or something down here. Is the optics bad? I guess is my question. If we were to continue playing.
Personally, I think if you ask the parents of the kids that are playing, and we don't even have to talk about football or basketball. We can talk about the kids that are running cross country or the kids that are in the swim meet. I think if you ask their parents, they would speak to the value of what they're doing and how important it's been for their kids to be able to participate in something that they're invested in and means that much to them. And to me, that's part of your educational experience. I mean, they're education-based athletics. And so although the educational model doesn't look the same, we're still trying to provide the best experience and the best education we can give them. And so if we can do that safely in person, then that doesn't have to be dependent upon being in the classroom. And we kind of already proven that. Volleyball's gotten through it, and volleyball's done a great job, and they've managed things. And I will say, it's not been perfect anywhere. South Carolina's had their issues. Private schools have had their issues, but we have competent and caring administrators and coaches who don't want to put kids in an unsafe situation. I don't think any of us believe that there are coaches that would do that. But I do believe we have coaches that care enough to do things right, and if at all possible, provide that experience for their kids in a safe manner. And I believe we have that here. So it's hard to feel like we weren't given that opportunity.
Yeah. Coach Chapman, you see the message on the screen. They're saying don't worry about do what's right for kids, don't worry about how it looks. Your opinion about the optics question. Would it look bad if we were to continue to play right now?
Well, I'll kind of piggyback exactly what Scott said, and I'll defer to my parents. And we're allowed to have 50 kids out at one time on a field. So while we're doing our workouts, we've had to do our workouts in 3 sessions. So we've had to bring in, 50 kids at a time for 3 sessions because we've got almost 150 kids coming to workouts. So obviously, our parents, want their kids out there. For us to have that many kids that are coming to workouts. And, like Scott said, I think what's been really encouraging to me is that our parents trust us. They trust their coaches. They trust those of us that are doing this to know that we have the kids' best interest. None of us are getting in this for anything other than, kids and doing it for the kids and giving them the opportunity to do this. And that's, I think what's really disappointing for me is that I think the people or the persons making the decision here are pretty disconnected from the day-to-day time with the kids.
Alex?
I got one thing to say. People want to talk about the optics of this. I want to tell you what looks really bad. It's going to look really bad if we don't have education-based athletics. And I'll tell you why. You want to know what looks really bad? It looks really bad that we're hung up on some kind of a 19th century educational model that mandates or seemingly pushes this notion that there's a mutually inclusive relationship between the brick and mortar building as being integral to the efficacy of the teaching and learning process. Technology, the integration of technology in the educational mainstream reinforces the notion that the brick and mortar building does not have to be in place for education-based athletics to thrive. Why are we hung up on that 19th century model? You want to know that's what looks bad right there. What also looks really, really bad is by not playing, that we are reinforcing the notion that and we'll use, since we have Coach Taylor and Coach Chadwick right here, we'll use the Myers Park example, that I know Myers Park is a wonderful community, but so we're reinforcing this notion that there's some people out there that all they want these guys to do is cultivate football and basketball players and go out and win games. They're not doing anything to speak to the educational efficacy and teaching and learning that goes on day in and day out on the football practice field and in that beautiful gymnasium that Myers Park has. The teaching and learning, the character building, the relationship building, all of which transcend any game that is played, that go on in those two venues day in and day out, and thus give life to the prevailing mission of education-based athletics. So you're talking about the optics of it all. If we don't play because of those reasons and more, it looks bad. It looks really bad.
Coach Taylor, I know you got to go. I know you have a conference with your kids, but any final comments before we let you get out of here? I know it's a tough day for you.
I think what Alex has said is right on, man. Like we've talked a little bit that COVID's been an accelerant for everything in our world, and I think high school athletics are changing drastically, and it's a much larger conversation, and I get that. But we played a game last night, and I had a one-on-one conversation basically with every kid in some regard, and most of that was not X's and O's stuff, but it was watching kids be nervous, even though there's nobody in the gym, watching kids be excited, watching them figure out how to battle back, being down, watching them deal with adversity. And those were things that reminded me how important it is and how much I miss. And I can't replicate those conversations in practice. So having a chance to do that, that is our mission. And kind of finish it up. I mean, we've been on break for 4 hours and I got prep schools that are already in my kids' DMs.
Absolutely.
Things are like literally, I've seen them already, and things are changing. And parents are going to, rightfully so, look out for their own and chase what's in their best interest. But by doing that, they miss the experience that we offer. And if they never get a taste of what high school sports can offer, then they're not going to know what they're missing. And if our leadership doesn't make sure that they understand what we have to sell, and what we have to sell may be different from travel ball or spring ball or whatever club sports. We still have a great mission to sell, and we have a great experience to sell. And I don't want to sell that short. We're missing out if we don't make that front and center.
All right, Coach, look, thanks for coming on, man. Best of luck to you. Hopefully we'll get back to playing on the 15th, and you guys make the playoffs. Keep it going.
Thanks, Langston. Appreciate you guys.
All right, man. My man Scott Taylor, Mars Park High School. Now we got my man Jupiter Wilson, former UNC football player, on the screen. But before I let you go, Jupe, I got your man Gary. I'm gonna let you go. Chris, you made a comment in the back that really caught my eye. I want to put you on the one shot. We're gonna have Chris's corner in a second. We're gonna have a little pre-Chris's corner. Tell me what's on your mind here.
Well, no, I'm glad you put me on the one shot because I've been kind of chomping at the bit here to say something. And yes, I did make that comment, and I feel very clear about it. And Coach Taylor, you know, I've got to give him props for what he said because he's 100% accurate on just about everything he said. You know, from the accelerant aspect of what COVID has done to all these situations, not just athletics, but you know, everything. But I've got to say something in with what Coach Chadwick said that I feel is 110% correct. That I feel like sometimes the leaders are disconnected from what the reality of the boots on the ground, the people, the coaches in the school. And by no means am I sitting here trying to jump on Superintendent Ernest Wilson. He's been on the show. He's a great guy. And I can never know, and none of us, quite honestly, can understand the enormity of the pressure that's felt by him sitting in those shoes that he's wearing and the decisions that he has to make that affect so many other moving parts within the system. And you know, we're worried about sports. He's worried about everything. So I'm not trying to belittle the decision he made. But Coach Chadwick has said so many things. You know, I talk to football coaches and coaches of all sports, quite honestly, every day. And you just don't understand the level of mental health issues they're dealing with these players every day. It's always something, you know, kids are feeling the effects of not being there more than anybody. And it's not even the, you know, being on the grass and the dirt of working out on the field or lifting weights or playing in the gym. It's not just the competition aspect of it, but it's just the being around the team, the being around the coach, because we forget that more often than not, these coaches and sometimes these players are more of a family for these players and then their own families at home. You know, you never know the situations they come from. And I just think they need it. You know, follow the protocols, be safe, wear the mask, whatever it takes. You know, I'm not saying that COVID doesn't matter. It does. It's here. It's not going anywhere. We're going to respect the virus and everything around it. But I think these kids just need us and the sport and these coaches more than anything. And I just don't want to see the leaders forget that.
All right. Well, we're going to bring you back on Chris's corner. I see you all fired up. You've been away for a while. You ready to go?
Thank you.
All right. My man, Chris Hughes. Man, it's great having Chris back. Coach Wilson, I'm going to let you and Gary and Scott have a good time, but I just wanted to ask you, CMS is not playing. You're in a conference with CMS. You got a whole bunch of holes in your basketball schedule.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So actually today, you know, got the message about CMS not being able to play, and just kind of word on our end, you know, as a coach, what was going to happen with us once it ended up going through. We were able to schedule our Friday game that we were supposed to actually go against Myers Park. That got changed that we're going to play Porter Ridge. Supposedly next week we're probably going to end up making a Cabarrus County tour. So from Coxville possibly to Robinson to West Cabarrus, and then possibly getting back to all the CMS schools when they open up again, and we'll end up playing those. You know, one of the questions I asked our athletic director actually before I got up here was what's going to happen with the conference, because most of the teams are going to probably have somewhere between 4 and 6 games that they completed. And right now, if we're able to play, we're going to have 12 to 14 games, and it's just trying to figure out, you know, who gets the seeding for the playoffs and all those type of things. But the one thing I say is good for our girls, and I told them today, you know, just be thankful for the opportunity that we do have. I know I said, you know, Coach Chadwick from a football standpoint, you know, Coach Taylor was talking from a basketball standpoint, that in my position that as a football and a basketball coach, you know, I'm going to be full go starting next week with football coming in at 2:30 and, you know, basketball starting right after. So like I told our ladies today when we met, count your blessings. We got the opportunity and go seize the moment.
Does Hickory Ridge have an advantage over that man, Scott Chadwick, right there below you in football, because you'll be able to practice and he'll be sitting on the sideline. His kids won't be doing anything from now till then, and you'll be doing something. Is that an advantage?
I mean, no, most definitely. I mean, anytime you get a chance to be around your kids and another team doesn't, it's definitely an advantage. I mean, but I even take it a step further. I mean, I look at our schools in Union County. They've been going since, you know, pretty much April, May, June. and they've been going all the way through. And, for us and along with CMS, we weren't really able to start pretty much until October. And so we've been going 2, 3, 4 days a week. I know they've been going pretty strong. We had to take a couple weeks off when Cabarrus County had shut us down. And I guess feel like almost things in reverse. I think the better thing for us, we kind of get it going right before the season, and Coach Chadwick and CMS a little bit behind because they're actually going to miss, quote unquote, actual football practice. So, you do gain an advantage on that. So for Independence, which would be our first game, I definitely feel like it's an advantage us having technically about 10 extra days of practice.
Well, can't say it any better than that. I mean, he's right.
Yeah, Juke, today in practice, the concern that was in the girls' eyes, like, why now?
Right.
It's we got going, we got the season going, we're on a winning streak, and I remember this afternoon when you called me and say, "Hey, I need you to get here. We got a game tonight." Right. And then 5 minutes later, you say, "No, we don't. We got practice." And then you say, "Nah, we're gonna practice. We're gonna play tomorrow, but we're playing against this team." And this morning, I'm working on the scouting report for Myers Park, and we're not playing Myers Park, Right. And so it's constantly changing. And in the last segment, they talked about the optics, and we know that Carolina and State, they sent all the students home back in the fall, and they kept playing sports. They're still not open. They have delayed opening, but they're still playing sports. How do you think that's different for high schools, that we can't continue to play sports and the kids learn remotely?
I think for us, and the difference between college and it's the good and the bad and everything in between, is just that we don't have the money that's involved. I think right here when we're playing or doing the things that we're doing, it's really about the kids. And so from that standpoint, as a coach, you hope you have the opportunity to impart those things into those young people. But from a college standpoint, we know that, I used to get a joke from my one of my college former coaches. I won't say his name, but he used to always say, academics come first, and he would put the 2 fingers up, and then he would say football comes second, and then he would put 1 finger up. And so that was his way of letting us know, to an extent, how he felt about athletics and academics as it relates to a college. And we're nowhere near that. And so those stipulations aren't going to be made for high school athletics, and we've seen it. I mean, we've gotten stopped 2 or 3 times, and at the end of the day, they're making decisions based on their metrics or whatever the case may be. And it's like I told our ladies today, even though we get to play, we still got to roll with the punches.
Well, Scott, having heard that from Coach Wilson, particularly about the practice thing, how big of a hole is that going to put you guys in when you have to play teams like that?
Well, I think it all depends on the individual school. I think, Jupe talks about he opens up with Independence. Well, if I'm Independence, that's a real problem. Having to open up with, someone who's not been sitting for, 5 weeks like we will have been. In my situation, we at least, I think my first 3 games are against CMS schools. So, in that case, we're all at least, somewhat in the same boat. But if someone in our conference has to open up with, Hickory Ridge or Porter Ridge,
yeah,
whether it be in the first or the second game, that's a tall order. But I also think that speaks to, another thing that comes down today, and it's not just, CMS that's affected by this. Basically just what what Coach Wilson just said. His whole day was messed up trying to, redo an entire schedule because of what CMS did. I'm sure the same thing happened up in Mooresville. I'm sure it happened at, Porter Ridge. I'm sure it happened at Lake Norman. There's a domino effect of other schools who want to play and are still playing that were, greatly impacted by this today.
Coach Grice, your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, it's, and I had a conversation a little bit with Coach Oliphant today, and I mean, it's frustration on both sides. And I mean, I think those guys, kind of the same way, where they know that they're going to be massively affected by something that technically doesn't or shouldn't really relate to them. I mean, You know, it's just one of those situations that it's just so tough. I mean, you hate it because you do know things are out of control. Like, you know, I talked with a coach and had the story of where, and this kind of speaks to what we were talking about, where, you know, a mom was hesitant to bring a son, you know, back out to practice because of everything that's going on. But then over the holidays, that son spent time around a family member who had been traveling and been, you know, a little reckless. That son came in contact with that person who ended up having COVID. Now that kid had COVID. It's not a football thing that caused that because we're doing everything we need to. But then you have these situations by other people.
Control what they do when they go
Exactly.
home.
I mean, you know, personally, of course, this has affected me, you know, me and my family. It's ravaged my family over the holidays. So I completely understand the need to be cautious. It's just frustrating because I know we're taking care of everything we need to.
I wonder if we got a comment. The guys asked, could they reevaluate? I wonder if CMS will reevaluate. I think Q Tucker told me she feels like we're seeing the New Year's, Christmas boom right now, but then maybe next week and week after it goes down, so maybe they can come back a little earlier. That'd be. I don't know if that's going to be possible, but I certainly think that'd be good.
Well,
I mean, like the private schools are closing 10 days.
No, it's not going to happen though. You know that though. Like,
I mean, based on the way it was presented at the board meeting today, it's not the Board of Education's call. They actually said that in the board meeting.
Yeah.
Look, it's not our call. We don't vote on this. They put it back on the superintendent, so it's his call.
All right, Gary, I'm going to make you your buddy, Ernest Winston. I'm going to put you in a one shot. What are you doing right now? You're the guy running CMS.
I'm listening to my coaches. I'm trying to get feedback from my ADs. How many kids have you had to quarantine? You know, as a percentage of your athletic department. I know teams have been shut down periodically, but did you shut your program down because of contact tracing, or did you shut your program down because somebody actually had it? And so I'm trying to get some information on my athletic programs of how much time have we lost just because of contact tracing. I think that's some information we might want to find out. We might want to find out before we shut a whole team down. Are the parents willing to allow their kids to be tested? And you get a majority of the kids that come back negative, then hey, let those kids go play. You know,
and that's what's happening. Kids are testing negative, and that's, you know, it's still not being, you know, changed. Like if you guys, I know probably Chadwick, you were being a film guy, but like watching the film room on the national championship game, those coaches were speaking to Coach Washington of North Carolina A&T, and he said, you know, those coaches said it's the contact tracing. You know, Coach Chadwick talks about 150 kids he has. We don't have that. You know, we're at half of that probably for both teams. So if one guy on my offensive line gets it, we're shut down. You know,
I want to throw it to Chris, but before I do, Jupe, I want to ask you and Coach Chadwick a question. And I want to shout out Coach Philman. Nice comment there. I'm trying to make a difference, but coaches and ADs definitely can influence CMS. That's why we have them on the show, because we know everybody on CMS watches this show. Trust me on that. My question, if we don't play sports, and Coach Wilson, you can go first. I know this is not necessarily you, but in Coach Chadwick, if we don't play sports and the kids aren't coming to school every day to go to practice and go to games, are they worse off or more likely to do something to get the virus versus if they were on campus for that amount of time per day? Coach Wilson, you go first.
And I'll start with that first. I mean, we've been in Plan B literally for about the past, I guess, 2 or 3 months. And for the most part, the kids that were coming there, you know, I've talked about it even from a basketball standpoint, but for football workouts, I felt like that was a way to make sure that they were, you know, had to come to workouts, had to come to school, and then, you know, there's less chance of those things spreading. I think now when those kids are more remote and not even think about playing sports, you know, one day I rode the Chick-fil-A, and when I was in the drive-thru, I saw a young lady that I knew went to school, and I said, hey, aren't you supposed to be in school? And she was like, nah, I get all my work done. And I guess she did, but I thought it was ironic that now that the kids don't have to go to school, they're doing remote. You know, the kids got the means and the parents feel like they can do it, they're allowing their sons and daughters to go to work. And you're probably going to get more spread in those type of environments than you ever would at school. So like I said, I'm not here to speak on the metrics and, you know, decision people make above me, but I do feel like though, sometimes the saving place for those kids could be is right there in the schools. But, you know, teachers and parents and, you know, administrators and all those type of things are going to have different opinions. But I do think it's a positive influence on those young people.
Coach Chadwick, same question.
No question. They're much safer at school than they are, and wherever they are away from school. You know, I just from a workout standpoint, let's say that, you know, a bunch of our kids now get together and go work out somewhere. They find a field somewhere and go work out. They're not going to be. Nobody's going to take their temperature before they walk on the field. Nobody's going to offer them hand sanitizer before they walk on the field. They're not going to wear a mask. They're not going to social distance. Okay, they're not going to do that in an unstructured environment. But we're forcing them now to be in that unstructured environment. If they have to go now to their personal trainer or, you know, whoever this coach is now that they're going to go to because they're not with their coaches, that coach isn't going to, you know, do those things. He's not going to take their temperature or do anything like the things that we have to do to keep them safe, the protocols that we have in place. Those aren't in place in normal situations that now the kids are going to be put into because they're not with us on the practice field.
Yeah,
I think one of the things, and I'm not blowing Jupiter's horn because I work with him, but one of the outstanding things I think that Jupe does, or he did, is, you know, when those guys came to football workouts, he did a grade check first. Yeah. And if anybody was slipping in their grades, then instead of them getting the workout, he put them in study hall. He spaced them out, and he put them in study hall and said, instead of working out, you're going to get caught up in your assignments before you get to do football. Now, see, that's an advantage of having sports. But with the regular student, there's nothing you can do if they're not doing their work remotely. All right, Chris, I saw you. We have a private chat you guys can't see in the back, and Chris is just blowing it up back there. So, Chris, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Gary. I'm going to put you in a one shot. I'm going to make you Ernest Winston. Tell me how you handle this.
Well, first of all, Jupe, you were already pretty high on my list. But now that I heard how you handle the kids and their grades with Gary, hey, huge thumbs up for me. But to the topic of the moment, if I were Ernest Winston, I'm sorry. And again, I have great respect for the man. He's come on the show. I do think he watches what we're doing. And I understand the pressure and the stress and all the different angles in which people are probably in his ear. So I'm not hating on the man. But if I were him, I would step away. I would want to go talk directly to the coaches. And I don't necessarily mean the ADs. I mean the coaches of each specific sports. Talk to them. Find out what's really happening on the ground. Talk to your ADs. You know, I go to football practices. I go to games. I've been to some games under this, new quarantine style athletic events we've had with limited numbers. There's parents out in the parking lot. There's parents waiting to pick up kids. Go talk to them. You know, you want to talk about, you know, being out of touch or whatever. You talk to those parents and you'll get a pretty good understanding of what's going on. You'll be able to understand really what the players are feeling, what the parents are feeling, and you'll get a better idea of just how the virus is affecting them. Again, I understand the virus. It's not going anywhere. We've got to respect it. We've got to do everything in our power not to spread it and to keep people safe. But I do think that there's ways that we can be better. And Coach Chadwick said something very important. You know, these guys are going to the gyms, to the personal trainers, out on the streets, wherever it is that they're trying to get their athletic workouts in. And that's a very unstructured environment. I feel a whole lot better with my kid. And I just picked up my child from school a little bit ago. I feel a whole lot better with them in school going through the protocols that they're going through to keep them safe than I would my kid playing out here in the neighborhood sometimes. So I think in the watchful eye of the coaches, the administrators, the people who's got your kid's best interest at heart, I'd want to listen to them.
All right. Hold on. I lost my spot. I was doing something else. All right. I'm going to bring my man Dale in, who's been in the back. We got it. Microphone's back.
Am I echoing?
No, you're not echoing.
I'm sorry.
So Dale, you first of all, Juba, man, thank you for coming on. I don't want to hold you up all night, man. I appreciate it. I know I thought about you because you got the football and the basketball, and you got that advantage over CMS. Now you get to practice. So we got to install you as a 7 to 8 point favorite on February 26th.
State champion there, right? All that time.
Yeah, man. Got to enjoy it, man. Looking forward to it. Double duty next week.
All right, man. Take care of yourself. Appreciate you. We'll have you back in February.
You know it.
All right. That's my man, Jupiter Wilson. I met him. He was like losing like 100 pounds. He was out doing all kind of workouts at 5:30 in the morning. Had me up way too early to go check him out. Dale, you've heard the discussion. You've been in the back. You hadn't had a chance to say anything. We had some technical difficulties. Just your thoughts on CMS, the decision today. What should we do? Are we doing the right thing? Are the metrics or the optics right? Just everything.
That's a lot. It's really hard to say because this is an unprecedented time, and right now I was just looking at numbers, and we had 6,000 deaths yesterday. So there's a lot that he has to look at. The one thing I'm going to say, first of all, and I'll name no names, but feedback that I get is that there needs to be more communications between the upper echelon of CMS and the coaches and ADs that are out in the field. That there's not enough of that, and actually, it's almost as if it's lacking. As far as what came out today, I worry because I don't think the numbers are going to start dropping because the holidays carried all the way through the first. So we probably won't see that drop until a few more weeks. And thus, what is that going to do with the ability to kick it up and get going? Will they readjust? I saw that question. Would they possibly reevaluate? I don't think there's going to be time. I do want to say that I think it's scary that if things go and we are able to play, basketball is difficult because you've got just that organization and communications and things that players need in a game that you work on. But football, there's a lot more to it, and that includes hitting. And to come out and then a week, 10 days later, roll out and start hitting in a real game, I'm worried about that. They've not had enough prep up to that time, and now they're losing that prep time. So I think that's very difficult. As far as what he should do, Langston, I think he should communicate with all the people in South Carolina who carried it through the state championships and find out. Now,
the virus is different now than it was then.
Well, I agree.
You pointed out, because you said
in the summer, I said if we want to have sports, we need to play in the fall. But
you did, and the rest of us said spring, and we were dead wrong.
Exactly. So, but still, they need to find out. A report just came out that 54% of the cases seem to be spreading by asymptomatic people. Yeah. So that's a little bit of a scary point because the kids are going to be those asymptomatic people. Yes. Even though there's more virus now, still there's data there that I hope they're mining, that they're asking about. What did you see? What were the number of cases? Mm-hmm. Did you do contract tracing? Could you, did you do these things? And what were your results? I would be hopeful that we could see a model where we can play. But, I've felt all along if we were going to play, especially football, the numbers of people that we have, last fall was when we should have done it.
Yeah. Grice, I'm going to give you the last word on this topic before we toss to Chris's corner. Dale made a point about not having enough time to safely get ready to start the season on the 26th if you guys aren't going to have practice until the 15th. Your thoughts there, and then just any general thoughts you had about the topic. We're going to move on.
I agree 100% with Dell. I mean, I think it's a situation where, you look at the normal NCHSAA with the acclimatization period. Normally that's for heat, but also that is, for kids to get acclimated and wearing the equipment and being able to get used to the rigorous, exercise, rigorous, active playing the game of football. So for us to have maybe a 10 or 11 day period in which we can't even use all of those days for practice, that's more irresponsible than being out on the field currently. I don't, and I know something's going to have to give there, and I don't know exactly what that may be, but I really think that CMS, and again, we talk about this being from the health officials seeming to push down and enforcing this call, but it really puts CMS in a very tough role. I mean, what do we deem is going to be the bigger piece there to hurt us? So, I don't know specifically. It's a tough decision. I don't know what I would do, but I do know the things that I wouldn't do. I think if you leave it to the coaches to keep them, in the same path we've gone, it's plenty of teams that have been out here practicing safely with no cases. I do know that's the place where guys are getting temperature checked. I laugh with my friends that don't coach that I get temperature checked 4 or 5 times a week. I'm aware of my health, whether I need to go get tested. I'm going to do that more proactively than people around here. So, I mean, I do think we're in a situation where we're taking more precautions than the average person, and to be treated kind of in that same way, like we're being reckless and we're not out here doing what we need to do, is disheartening and a little offensive, I'll say, because we have the best interest of these kids at heart, and to kind of, any insinuation that we're not, as this directive seems to be, that it's too dangerous, that we can't safely hold practices and help these kids. It's disrespectful when it goes against all the hard work we've done.
All right, well, we're going to come back to this a little bit, but here's a button I've been waiting to hit for a long time. We're going to Chris's Corner, man.
And guys, it really is great to be back here with amongst friends and just colleagues and everybody who does a tremendous job in covering the landscape of the prep scene here in the state of North Carolina and even South Carolina. So it's great to be back home with all you guys. The couple items that I'm going to talk about tonight are really kind of pressing rewind and going back to when the realignment was announced a few weeks ago. But I've been out of the country. I've been away for so long that I haven't had the opportunity to get on here with you guys and kind of discuss that. I know here in a few moments we're going to talk a little bit about the phase 2 or the Plan B draft or whatever the second draft that's released by the NCHSAA today in regards to the realignment. But I want to get on here and say this, and I know that there's been some conversations amongst some fans. I monitor social media, and I hear the scuttlebutt amongst fans and in their thoughts, pluses and minuses to the realignment. And of course, I'm very in tune to what the coaches feel as well. But I've got to say this: I think the NCHSAA really hit a home run, in my opinion. I know that may not come across well to some people, but in how they broke up the state, I think the East-West threshold of you're either in the East or you're in the West, I think that is probably the biggest breakthrough thing I've ever seen come from the NCHSAA. And I got to say, I love it. From the sports fan side and the journalist side and, covering the sport, I think it's tremendous because you're almost guaranteed I don't want to say guaranteed, nothing's a guarantee, but you got that chance for a Richmond County versus a Charlotte State Championship in the 4A. And you no longer have those teams from, let's say, the Columbus County, the Robinson County area getting stuck in the West and having to drive 4 or 5 hours to Robbinsville to play a first round playoff game. So from a standpoint of saving money, from keeping the East and the East and the West and the West, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I got to give 2 thumbs up to everybody involved with the state. The other side of the equation, though, I've heard so much people remark about the split conferences. And I know that there are huge numbers of split conferences. But, I mentioned earlier that I can't put myself in Ernest Winston's shoes. So you never know the enormity of the situation that the board of directors and the state are feeling. They have to try to please everybody and try to do things with everybody's best interest at heart. But when you really start to look at those split conferences, I think that they were onto something. And I think, if you study it, I think it's going to be a better solution than what we had in the past. And maybe the final thing that I'll say, I know everybody's complaining about going from 8 championships down to 4. I do think just kind of hold tight. I think this might be a 2-year, maybe a 4-year deal. But I do think that this is going to be the catalyst that's going to get our administrators to revote on the bylaws, hopefully to get us more championships, more classifications, which is what I think we need anyway, because I think we all agree that 4 is too small given the population numbers in our state, but I think 8 might be too many. So, I'm anxious to see where we might end up with that, but that's pretty much all I got tonight in the corner, guys. Again, I can't express how happy it is to be back here on the team with everybody, and I can't wait to see what else is in store as the season's about to kick off.
Man, I was so happy to hit that button. I've been looking at it for like 2 months. I couldn't hit it. There's no kiss. I couldn't hit it.
I'll say this, guys. I wish y'all could have been with me traveling the world, Dubai, the Middle East. I had a tremendous time serving our troops, serving our country, working with the USO. Circumstances happen, things here at home, circumstances with the job that, it wasn't a long-term thing, and it was never going to be a long-term deal. But in terms of just being able to get out there and still feel like you're serving your country, man, it was great. And to see the world and to see our soldiers and airmen and Marines and sailors out there, it was phenomenal.
The one time you sent in that taped one for our last show of the fall, Sam got emotional. He said, "Man, I love that guy. That's my guy." Am I lying?
I love that guy.
So, man, it's good to have the team back, man.
I'll say this: Sam would be struggling out there because there's no winter, and I know how he feels about
Sam's got to have winter. I know we were supposed to go to 2-minute warning, gloom and doom, real quick, but since you brought up the realignment,
Doom's back.
I know they're back. I want to talk about the realignment because I know we kind of got on the CMS thing. We'll definitely come back to it. But Alex, can you start us off with just kind of a look at the East and what are you seeing in the East for the second realignment? I'm going to try to see if I can plug it up here on the screen.
Oh, there we go.
Well, you got several things going on here. One of the most notable things is the realignment of effectively the Wake County conferences. We're talking 3 conferences, venturing into a fourth a little bit. But if you look at 27, 28, and 29, which are Wake County, exclusively Wake County conferences, yes. The big adjustment there is the repositioning of Millbrook, traditionally aligned with Enloe, Sanderson, and Broughton, kind of as the old inside Raleigh schools. Think of it kind of in the sense as Coach Chadwick knows, Raleigh's version of Myers Park is Broughton in a sense, that inside the Beltline kind of school. Millbrook was in that quartet of Broughton, Enloe, Millbrook, Sanderson of Raleigh's 4 older schools. So that's a huge shift right there. You have a little bit of other realignment to account for some growth in Wake County. A couple Wake County schools are over in 26, actually 5 of them. Willow Spring is going to be a new school. South Garner is still in its infancy, 3rd, 4th year. The Johnston County, Clayton, Cleveland coming up to the 4A level. So just a lot of growth right there. I think the big shift worth noting is in Conference 24 with that split classification deal with a 4A, 3A, and 3 4A schools. It's going to be pretty tough for someone like Richmond County not to be a number 1 4A school.
Well, that was my question. I wanted to ask you to Coach Chadwick, since you and Coach Till are such good buddies and play each other, seems like every year. Is Richmond County just got a road to the finals for the next couple of years?
I think they're in the driver's seat to be in the 4A. I guess it's 4A now, not 4AA. But
yeah, and Coach Till, if you're watching, text me. I'll plug you in. I'd love to get your thoughts here.
I mean, I think you've got to make them the favorite for the next 4 years. I think that's if you're in Rockingham, I think you got to be pretty happy with the fact that you're guaranteed to be in the East for the next 4 years.
Yeah. Chris, you have some thoughts about the Eastern brackets? Am I in the right? We need to change classes, or are we still in for it?
No, we're fine. And Scott, I think you're right about Richmond. I'll never say that it's a certainty because you know what? You got to play the game first. And, they might be favorites, but Coach Till will be the first to agree that you've still got to strap it up, and injuries and just everything like that happens. But, the thing – everything Alex talked about with the Raleigh Conference, I think that's a really good distribution of the way they got things out. And you really understand the geographics of the Beltway and the Triangle and everything up there. I think they did a great job. I can't say anything about, Conference 19 with the Greenville, Newbern, Jacksonville schools. I think that's a perfect match. And the way the roads are in the East, it's easy to go distance in the East versus maybe in the West, just because of travel. The only ones that I've really got to shake my head at and lived in that area, I've coached in that area, is the distribution of the split 3A and 4A conferences between, Richmond County, Lee County, Harnett County, and Cumberland County. I see in Conference 23, you've got a predominantly 3A league with 2 4A schools in there. but yet with 22, you've got a predominantly 4A school league with 3A schools, all from the Fayetteville area. And then you've got Richmond County sitting over there having to make these road trips. And granted, it's about an hour and a half, hour or so up to Lee County to play Southern Lee and Lee County, whereas, just a little bit of tinkering, I think it would have been a much more natural fit to have the Lee County schools with the Harnett County schools, because they're natural rivals already. You move those Harnett County schools out of a conference with like Terry Sanford and Fayetteville, which makes no sense whatsoever. It just from looking at the map, looking at rivalries, looking at the roads to get there, you're going to have to drive all the way across Fayetteville. And driving across Fayetteville in the afternoon, you look at Fort Bragg, that's going to be hard. No. So, I kind of question that. Some of it looks like the makeup of the old Mid-Southeast that we had in the late or the early 2000s or mid-2000s. And, not forget, we had 4 teams from that conference when I was coaching go to the state championship game in the same season. So, that's a phenomenal area for football. But just to shake up the way they got some of them teams slotted just makes me scratch my head a little bit, and I'd love to understand the reasoning as why.
Well, it's still version 2. We can still fix it. I want to move to the 4A schools, and Grice and Gary and Dale too. Your thoughts, because I really liked how they had it the first time when they had West Charlotte, West Meck, and what is now the SOMEC. But now they've taken 2 3A teams and put them in the best 4A league. What are you guys' thoughts there?
I mean, I told them like the Temptation song. I said to Griner, I said, I know you want to leave me, but I refuse to let you go. I think keeping West Charlotte there is fine. I mean, again, we're 10 minutes away from West Charlotte. A lot of our kids don't live too far from each other, and West Meck isn't far either. But, I think the bigger thing for me is just it's going to be tough splitting up the, Conference 60. And I think that really drives where a lot of these other schools, go. I mean, Huff, Hopewell, and North Met, and really Mallet Creek usually have to be together when you look at the landscape of our city. And it's going to be really hard to break them up. And I mean, again, you talk about, a Huff, you put them in the conference with Catholic and Butler, having to drive clear across town and stuff like that doesn't make sense. It's just a fit that I don't think would be great, and I think, you look at Conference 59 and just some of the shakeup there. I mean, you would love to have Myers Park there, but with the addition of a lot of these 4A schools in the area, I think change is going to have to be made within that conference.
It just seems to me, Dale, that West Charlotte and West Meck belong in Conference 49. Harding is a central school, Barry is a central school. West Meck is a little less central, but competitive wise, it just seems like the right fit. I think though those schools may struggle competitively in Conference 60. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah. One, my biggest gripe has always been split conferences. I'll take split playoffs over split conferences any day of the week. But that set aside, and there's too many split conferences in my opinion. But when I look at Conference 60 and I see West Meck and West Charlotte in there, that is definitely going to be tough. And also, when you look at, say, for example, well, 2 of those, they're rivals with each other, but their other big rival, Harding, sitting over in the other conference. It would have been good to have kept them there for that reason. Maybe they could have potentially given Scott more of a challenge. He's going to have it's hard to see Conference 49 not being his walk into the playoffs undefeated.
Oh, see, Scott, you got to respond.
That's not good effort around here.
Wow.
But I don't know. I don't like splitting up and having 3As and 4As together. When you look at how the Charlotte area was laid out, Conference 59. I don't know. It's just kind of interesting that Catholic gets thrown into that one and not in with, which I'm sure the Conference 49 be glad not to see them again.
Yes, they would be. Yes.
One that's pretty funny is that you look at Ashe County, which was a 2A school last year. It was moved up to 3A by the current realignment and reclassification, and now it's in a conference of 4A. So those same 2A schools now have to play 4A teams. How is that right?
That's a tough one. But I want Gary. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah. Having grown up in Charlotte and coached my whole career here in Charlotte, it's just something about splitting up North Meck and West Charlotte. I think that has been the longest running tradition since integration started in Charlotte.
Yeah.
And if you pull West Charlotte out of that conference, you also have to look at their gate. They really need that gate. They have traditional rivals, and
if you put West Charlotte with Harding, that's traditional rivalry too. And you got Barry. Those are good gates.
Those are bigger football rivalries. It's the North Meck West Charlotte basketball rivalry.
I just think West Charlotte. I think West Charlotte and West Meck are being set up to get beat up and struggle, particularly in the non-major sports, even more so in the major sports. I think they're gonna. I liked how they had it before, but Scott, I want to ask you about coming out of what is the Southwestern 4A and going into the SOMEC 7. What do you think about that?
Here's the thing with all the other stuff that went on today, I really haven't had much of a chance to kind of digest this.
Yeah.
So I was kind of busy, dealing with the other stuff. But, my original thought is, obviously change is a little bit weird. You get used to making your trips to, to Butler and Independence and, those places. But I don't know, one of the things I found when I got to Myers Park is that our actual, biggest rival is South Meck, who's never been in our conference. So I think it'll be nice to kind of be in the conference there with what's probably our most natural rivalry with South Meck, and really that'll be different. I don't know. I honestly haven't had a lot of time to digest it. But I think it'll be the change will be, a little bit reinvigorating, probably just a chance to play some different people. I think my biggest issue right now as a football coach is I know talking to some other coaches across the state, and that is, what is the playoffs going to look like? Okay. So are we going to stick with max preps, and is strength of schedule going to be an issue? Or are we going back to the way it was a few years ago where it was conference finish and then overall record? Because which way they go with that is a big determining factor in how we do our non-conference schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So if we got a non-conference schedule where, strength of schedule matters and max preps matters, well, then I'm going to go schedule the way I had this past fall. And this past fall, we'd have had Mallard Creek. We'd have had South Point out of Rock Hill. We'd had Trinity Christian out of Texas. We'd have had Huff. Okay, those are the teams we're going to schedule. But if you're telling me that we're going to get seeded based on our overall record, I got to be honest with you, I'm probably not putting those 4 teams on my schedule.
Right. And I think that would preclude us from having the type of schedule that we had coming into this year. Chris, I think that Mooresville and Lake Norman probably aren't too disappointed about getting away from Grice in the IMEC 4A. And I know that the Union County schools probably enjoy getting Catholic out of that conference. What kind of sticks out to you about 4A? And if you looked at any of the other Western conferences, we can take a look at those as well. But what sticks out to you?
Well, that conference number 57 that you just mentioned is a win for everybody in that league. I think that every one of those French Cabarrus teams would be the first to tell you that they're probably not going to be unhappy about not having to go play Scott or Butler or, Independence or those teams, because, it's quite a challenge. And, on the flip side, I guarantee you that if you were to ask the coaches up at Mooresville and Lake Norman, and they were being honest with you, they could find a way to avoid those trips into the IMEC. I think that they would be honest with you and say that. And so you look at the natural fit of some of those teams. Some of them are already natural rivals. Mooresville and Kannapolis are already big-time rivals. They're 15 minutes apart. And you got Highway 3 that kind of links Iredell County, Dale Earnhardt's Boulevard or whatever, Mooresville Road to Kannapolis and to Concord. So I think that that's a perfect fit for everybody there. Looking at some of the other ones, it's hard for me not to disagree with a lot of the things you guys said about the Charlotte conferences. I've got my own ways that I would probably try to put them together as well, which I think, listening to Dale and listening to Gary would probably align with your guys' thoughts as well. Other than that, you look at the setup up in the Triad, and, I think it's set up about as equitable and as good as it possibly can be in regards to rivalries and history.
All those Gilberts all together.
Yeah, so I mean, I think overall, and again, it kind of goes back to Chris's corner. I think the NCHSAA, all things considered, did a pretty good job. And the first thing you got to realize is you're never going to make everybody happy. But I think that they tried to look at the big picture and look at everybody versus just trying to look at everybody individually.
No, you're never going to make everybody happy. But if they move West Charlotte and West Meck into that SOMEC conference and shuffled it a little bit, I think it would work really good. I thought the first draft was actually better than the second.
With the way 485 kind of circles Mecklenburg County, and you look at some of the rivalries, and you got North Meck sitting right there at the interchange, pretty much of 485 and 77. Not a stone's throw away from Old Beatty's-Ford Road and that area. You put North Meck in there with the West Charlotte, with Harding, Berry, Olympic, West Meck, and all of a sudden you got some natural rivalries, but that's also a pretty daggone good basketball conference.
That's what I'm talking about. Independence and Rocky River on that 45 corridor too. You can hop 45 and get to Malley Creek, North Meck, any of those things pretty quickly. It's not the same as it used to be. But okay.
You look at, and just to throw it in there, but all of a sudden you look at Myers Park, Charlotte Catholic, South Meck, Providence, Ardrey Kell, and throw Butler and Indy in there, and that's a pretty good little compact league as well. That's really good for travel.
I tell you one thing, I wish they'd have had 485 finish when I was a head coach, because I used to hate driving that bus.
I don't know.
All right, it's time, y'all, for Gloom and Doom and Alex.
Dun, dun, dun,
Are you ready?
Oh my God! Is that Gloom and Doom?
No gloom and doom.
This is Grice's favorite. This is Grice's favorite segment. Let me find a theme.
No Kinsey.
No gloom, no doom. This time, here we go. 2 minute warning.
Alex, welcome to Gloom and Doom.
Yeah.
It's always a bright, sunshiny day to be with Gary Richmond and Daryl Ross.
Take it away, Dale.
Well, Gary, when I looked at these questions or these topics we have this week, some of it made me shake my head, but I do like this first one, kind of. And the question is, should the Panthers draft a quarterback? And should Teddy start anymore? So let's go with you first there, Gary, and then we'll get Alex.
They definitely should draft a quarterback. I think there are probably 4 quarterbacks that are worthy of being taken in the top 10 with Fields. We know Lawrence is going first. You got the kid out of North Dakota and the guy Zach Wilson out of Brigham Young. They all seem to be very good. The kid out of North Dakota reminds me a lot of Cam, except he's more accurate as a passer. But they definitely, being in the top 10, I think they need to draft a quarterback and then let him sit behind Teddy. And once they are out of playoff contention, if they're out of playoff contention, I said if, then you go ahead and play that draft pick. But as long as they're in playoff contention, I think you start a veteran in Bridgewater.
Everyone has it all wrong with trying to build an NFL championship team. Everyone trying to put all their eggs in one basket and draft that franchise quarterback. I want to turn back the clock and let's all remember that some of the Redskins later, 2 of the Redskins' 3 later Super Bowl championship teams, one of which was quarterbacked by Mark Rippon. The nucleus of that team was in place in terms of the receiving corps known as the Posse: Art Monk, Gary Clark, and Ricky Sanders. And guys like that, in addition to the Hogs, the offensive line, being in place already before Mark Rippon ever became the starting quarterback. Why don't we return to that kind of philosophy right there? You can draft a quarterback. Why do you expect that you're going to be in a position to win in the immediate future by drafting a young quarterback who's going to have to sit from the beginning, at least to learn how to make reads in the NFL and learn the intricacies of a team system, as opposed to putting that nucleus in place like the Redskins did. And then I won't go as far as to say that I could have been the quarterback, but with that nucleus in place in terms of the receivers they had and the offensive line that they had, then yeah, you could bring in Mark Rippon or anyone else. Same thing that the New York Giants did with Jeff Hostetler when he led them to a Super Bowl win. So no, they don't need to draft a quarterback. Put the rest of the nucleus in place, and a seasoned, prepared quarterback will want to come play for you.
Okay, so I think I've made it pretty clear, Gary, that I'd like to see the Panthers do whatever it takes to get Tyler Lawrence. That's obviously, it would take a lot to do that. I agree. There are a number of good quarterbacks that probably will fall into the Panthers draft pick. I hear the whole thing about build a nucleus, but I think you can pick up linemen. We have good backs, but I mean, we're good in skill positions. I think we need to build a line, and I think we can build a line without worrying about wasting a first-round draft pick on a lineman. I think it's very important to have a solid leader and a solid performer, and if you can get the right quarterback, certainly. As far as should Teddy start, I think that again depends on who you bring in and what their abilities are. If we bring in a quarterback, then we need to shuffle as fast as we can to get that individual into playtime. And possibly, Gary, if you think it's going to be when we're out of playoff contention, and if that's really a thought going into the season that there's going to be a point we're going to be out of playoff contention, then just be out of playoff contention and build the team the right way. Which might be to take some shots at, bringing in other linemen, bringing in other players, and give them all a year to gel. As a fan, I don't want to wait a year for, another playoff win or playoff game, I should say.
Dale, I got to ask you, are the Panthers out of playoff contention before or after the Cowboys?
For next season? That depends on if it's my personal view or an actual reality view. I'm not a big Cowboy.
Listen. Y'all know I was doomed about the Cowboys all season, but I've had a chance to rejuvenate, and we'll be back next year.
We'll be back. How about them boys?
We have to sign Dak. We just hired a new defensive coordinator. My enthusiasm is coming back.
Oh boy!
Okay? We will win the NFC East. Okay, put it that way.
Well, let's move on here. Well, we don't know what the Cowboys are going to do, but we can go. C is for Cowboys, and C is also for Clemson. Who knows? I mean, maybe even Clemson. Clemson might line up against the Cowboys pretty well. So, is Clemson done as a national championship contender, or did the conspiracy fall into place just against them this time? What you got, Gary?
No, they're not done. They've had too many years of back-to-back top 5 recruiting classes. So, no, they're definitely not done. Now, I think that other teams are gaining on them. I didn't like what I saw out of Clemson in the college football playoffs. I thought they got out-physicaled at the line of scrimmage. I thought they were weak down the middle of their defense with their safeties and linebackers. So they definitely are going to have to get better, but I don't think they're done. There's going to be, a transition period with the new quarterback, new running back, new wide receivers, but they've just recruited so well over the last 7-8 years, and they have very, very little turnover on their coaching staff. I think the biggest thing with Clemson is they got to get their hunger back, because I don't think people are just going to lay down for Clemson maybe like they have the last 4 or 5 years. But no, they're not done. I still think they're the ACC favorite. And usually whoever comes out of ACC is going to get one of the college football berths.
Dale, what you got?
Yeah, partly I think this season was an anomaly because of the virus. To think that this was one of the questions or topics when I saw, I was like, man, why would you put that on there? They didn't make it to the championship game this year. I don't think they're done. No, like you say, Gary, they've had too many top recruiting classes, and Clemson is a reload team. They were disappointed in that Ohio State game. We talked about their second time they played Notre Dame, and kind of what we thought would happen. But what happened in that Ohio State game, that was very disappointing to see out of a Clemson team. Regardless, Clemson is still the team to beat in the ACC, and I think the other teams are there's a gap. It's not like they're real close. There's a gap, and thus Clemson's going to be a top 4 team as a result of that. Just as the fact of where they'll be in the playoffs again, and getting hunger back. Yeah, maybe that may have made them a little hungrier. But I think their consistency in both recruiting and coaching staff, that tradition, all that is. I don't see. Maybe the nation might be getting closer, but I think this is kind of an anomaly year too.
Before we go on, let me chime in very succinctly as to why Clemson very much will be in the picture. 5 letters, 1 word. IPTAY. IPTAY. I pay $20,000 a year. I think it costs more than that to get prime seats in Memorial Stadium in Death Valley. But yes, you're talking about the most lucrative booster club in college football. The support is there. And what's driving the ship? Just what drove the ship with this Power 5 alignment, with that led to this championship playoff format that we have, MONEY. 5 letters, IPTAY equals MONEY. Clemson will be in the game.
Yeah.
So we all agree.
Yeah, we all 3 agree on that one.
Yeah.
Guys, Carolina ended the season with a lot of momentum. Do you think they're headed to be a national championship contender? And is Sam Howell a legit Heisman candidate, or will their defense hold them back? Are they not ready yet because of their defense? Alex, you go first.
Let me tell you what's going to happen right here. We have seen the sequel this offseason right here. And I say offseason because we haven't had a North Carolina high school football season this year yet. So we call it an offseason since we haven't played yet. We have seen the sequel of the architect of high school relations in this state of North Carolina. You want to know who altered high school football recruiting in this state? Mack Brown was the head coach back in the late 90s at UNC when this happened. But who altered it? It's a gentleman named Kenny Browning. Kenny Browning was the coach at Northern Durham High School from the late 70s into the early 1990s, and led Northern Durham to a state championship in 1993 over Tommy Knott's West Charlotte team, 39-6 in Keenan Memorial Stadium at UNC Chapel Hill. But I point that out to say several things. All right, so Coach Browning retired from Northern Durham after that game and joined Mack Brown's staff at UNC. And the moment that he went over there, high school recruiting in the state of North Carolina changed forever. That's when UNC went on its upswing in the run it had in the late 1990s. And that was when you saw the shift, and in state championship games were moved out of Chapel Hill because of the recruiting advantage. That was the genius and the mastery of Kenny Browning. He still volunteers and has volunteered with the program in a number of capacities since Mack's return. You are seeing and will see the sequel of that come to fruition with this great in-state recruiting class that was brought in from the graduating high school class of 21. We got Coach Chadwick right here, and one of his own is in that class, Drake May. We could go down the list. Power Eccles out of Vance, soon to be known as Chambers High School. Caleb Hood out of Richmond County. Keyshawn Silver, the defensive end, who's also going to play basketball at UNC out of Rocky Mount. And we can keep going down the list right here. So I say all that to say, is UNC ready to contend right now? Not quite yet. We saw too many things against Texas A&M where there's still some vulnerabilities. But is UNC on track with this sequel effort in high school relations excellence in in-state recruiting because of what they did this year? Let them redshirt this incoming freshman class and give them 3 years down the road, and they'll be there then.
Dale?
Okay, I'm setting aside my dislike of UNC. I think that's well known. But so are they ready to contend? If we're talking about the national championship, not yet. That's still down the road. There's many things they need to fix, defense being one of them. So will the defense get in the way? The defense maybe, but there's a lot of other little things that get in the way. A big, orange C to be one of them. So they're going to have to get through and win the conference before we even think about getting to that hurdle of national championship. And then making it to that playoffs, there's probably a hurdle there as well. Sam Howell is a phenomenal ball player, just absolutely. Sam and I went up to watch them play NC State to play them there at Chapel Hill. And, just that kid has just improved tremendously and should be a Heisman candidate, if not the Heisman winner next season. What a ball player. And Drake May coming in behind. Drake will, I'm sure, he'll sit out next season. So they definitely have a lot to build upon, but I think that if they're going to be a contender, we won't see that for a couple of more years.
I think, of course, I'm partial being a UNC graduate, but knowing Mac Brown, knowing the recruiting success he's had over his first 3 years there, I'm going to predict that they will make it to the ACC championship next year if they're healthy, and of course if Sam is healthy. He's going to have a whole new crew of receivers that he's going to have to adapt to. But I think having spring ball will definitely help that adjustment. But that defense is going to be good next year because they played a lot of true freshmen this year who didn't have the advantage of spring ball and summer workouts. And so I think they have 10 of the 11 guys coming back off the defense. And then most of their recruiting was centered on reinforcing the defense. I'm going to make a prediction. Silver will be starting by game 3, Keyshawn Silver. Power Eccles will be starting by mid-season. And the speed and veracity of that defense is going to really improve. And I think that's going to put them in the championship. Not enough to beat Clemson, but enough to be ranked in the top 10 at the end of the season. How about that?
Power's going to start sooner than that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Gary, you make good points. And all of you guys are right on.
I'm going to ask you what's in that cup if you're going to say Clemson, they're going to beat Clemson for the ACC
championship. They said they were going to beat Clemson.
I said they were going to lose by 28. That's okay.
I said they're going to play Clemson. They just got Power running back in from Tennessee.
Hey, Power is one of the best defensive players I've seen play in the state of North Carolina and South Carolina. He is a phenomenal school. As a high school player, he is a phenomenal player.
He's an animal.
He is an animal. And he's got a work ethic that beats that, nobody beats his work ethic. I can't say there's not kids that don't match.
Wait a minute. I don't want to get any complaints from mamas on that. He's a dude.
Oh yeah, you got to watch out the word that we use here.
Gotta watch the characterization of these kids. Hold on now.
Yeah. You
Even
know
more than that.
how we start getting these.
Even more than that, the GPA. But that's probably the first kid on my scouting report. Whenever we were watching the film, where you just don't even write anything down. It's nothing you need to say to the kid. There's no reinforcement that you need to give. Everyone knows exactly who he is, what he does, and he's where he's supposed to be. There are not too many kids, and I mean, again, we're talking about the IMEX. I mean, there's a lot of kids that are doing a lot of great things on Saturdays right now, but that was a kid, you grade him for the film that you had, and you rarely see that kid out of position. And I could probably say I count the number of times you saw it maybe on one hand, and I doubt I use all fingers.
His IQ, football IQ, is up there.
Yes, but he can also play fast.
Championship for Vance in the first series of that championship game. I think he made first down tackle, second down tackle, third down tackle, get off the field, game over.
That's a normal game for him, though.
Yeah.
That hit on the running back in Richmond County. I mean, you talk about a tone setter. I mean, that run they had last year was one of the most impactful, and that hit really set that tone. Let you know that game was going to go a little bit different than maybe some people thought.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Been in Charlotte now, 10, 12 years, best defensive player I played against.
Agreed. Hey, and guys, and Gary, Dale, and even Alex, I know you're not on the screen. You guys made phenomenal points about UNC. I just want to say one thing on the record here publicly, because I put it here in the chat. The only thing, or the one thing that sets UNC apart, why they're not quite there yet, and I think they'll get there, is, now with Mac Brown's recruiting, they got some 5-star guys at just about every position. But right now they've got 2 and 3 stars, and maybe even some 1 stars and some backup positions, and that's where that fall off is for Carolina right now. Whereas with Clemson, and obviously we saw it with Alabama, they got 4 and 5-star guys as backups and backups to the backups, and I think that's the one place that Carolina is lacking, and that's what's going to take a little bit more time to get to that elite echelon that I think those schools are at now.
Well, I saw somebody write in the comments, and I thought about this after Notre Dame got blown out by Alabama. Do you think it would be advantageous for Notre Dame to stay in the ACC, because we know the best high school football players come out of the South, from Texas to the coast, and then, of course, up to Virginia, down to Florida. That's where the best high school football players come from in America. And if Notre Dame leaves the ACC, I know they like to think they're a national brand, but that doesn't give them access the same way it would if they were in the ACC to get that kind of player you need to compete with Alabama and Clemson and Ohio State. I just think they would probably be better off if they want to be who they think they are nationally. They need to stay in the ACC so they have access to these Southern high school football players. What do you guys think?
I agree.
No, they're scared of commitment, man. They're like 40, 45. They're not going to do it because it doesn't allow them the freedom to do everything they want. They appreciate their freedom more than they would getting some of these Southern kids because of
freedom
the way
not to be competitive in the national championship.
Well,
no kids around here that are like, man, I really want to go to Notre Dame. And then being in the ACC isn't going to change that. You're talking, Gary, like, you've loved Carolina for years. You're not undoing 20, 30, 40 years of deep-seated love.
High school kids don't remember anything about Newt Rodney. Gipper, they don't care about that stuff.
You have kids to this day that are looking forward to go to Carolina because their dad, their uncle, their friend, their cousin have been Carolina fans for years. You don't hear that.
They're looking to go to Carolina because they wear Jordans. That's what kids care about. I don't think Jordan.
During the conference, they're never going to be the cool kid. They're going to be the weird kid on the side that's never been a part of anybody, has been a loner. They're never going to be that.
I think Notre Dame's making a mistake leaving ACC.
They are. Hey, guys, I'm getting yelled at. It's time for us to start Coach versus Coach. Langston, I don't know if you've got the music for us or not. Go ahead and drop it here, but if not, we'll go ahead and get started with this Coach versus Coach. And I don't think we got music, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Did CMS make the right call today? Why or why not? Coach Chadwick, since you're in the visiting team, we're going to let you go first.
So I guess we're specifically focusing on athletics, correct?
Yes, yes,
that's
correct.
The case,
not just football.
No, if that's the case, no. I don't think they made the right call at all. And again, we talked backstage about this. I think one of the biggest things that I heard today was just frustration with athletic directors who just don't feel like they have any voice when it comes to decisions about athletics. And I think that's the real frustrating part, is that the people who are on the grounds, in the trenches with athletics every day, have no say in making the decisions that affect them.
Hey, Gary, we're going to go to you. I'd like to get your point of view.
I'm agree with Coach. I'd say no, they made the wrong decision. Now, I'm basing it on the information they've given us. They never give us all the information ahead of time. As I said earlier, I would like to see what metrics they're using for athletics and not for, the general population, because we know that kids usually are healthier than older adults, and we haven't seen any spread among athletic teams. And the times that teams have been shut down, usually it's due to contact tracing and not because somebody actually got COVID. So based on the information that we have, I would say they made the wrong decision on sports today.
And I like that you used the metric and the information provided, because, again, we don't necessarily know what they've got, and maybe they should tell us. Grice, so what's your take?
It's hard. I don't agree with everything that they did with the call that they made. I will say I don't mind, and I in some forms do agree with the slight pause. Like, I'll say it with, see if Coach Chadwick is aware. I am aware of a major coach that currently does have COVID. I'm aware of players of other schools that have COVID. Our school does not. I'm going to say that, so I don't get in trouble. But, you have those situations where you hear of this kind of under the radar. And I think the biggest issue we have is a lack of transparency. And that goes all the way at the top from CMS with making these decisions, as does it with other schools and reporting what's going on. I think one thing where everybody looks at the collegiate model and all these other places that went ahead and played, you look at the situation with high school and everyone is keeping everything quiet and you don't know what's going on. You see games mysteriously canceled or mysteriously moved or rescheduled. I think that lack of transparency really has some schools who may be handling this better, who maybe aren't experiencing as many issues as others, wondering what's going on. I know, I, like Coach Chadwick, is wondering, what we're doing everything the right way. Nothing's, hit us, nothing's hurt us. But there are schools that are being affected. There are teams currently quarantined right now. And I don't say that as one or two. There are multiple. So in some ways, I do understand and can agree with some semblance of a pause with what's going on. I disagree with the lack of transparency. I disagree with the lack of a united front with the scheduling and understanding how this is going to fit football going forward. But unfortunately, it is hard for me to say I do agree with some of this.
And you use a word that I like. You use transparency, and Gary used a dissemination of information. Maybe there's info that they've got that we don't have, and that all kind of comes back to something we've already said: the optics of the situation. And is it done from a political standpoint just to be political for the person involved? Are they doing it to save face for the people that's looking at them and judging them? I don't know, but I'm kind of in concurrence with you guys. I don't think it was the right decision, with a little bit of an asterisk beside of it, because we might not know all the information supplied. And you guys made a great point to that. So great job, men. We're going to go on to the next question here in the coach versus coach. Should West Meck and West Charlotte been in the IMEC, yes or no, or should they have stayed the SOMEC? Grice, you coach in that league. Let's start with you.
Yes, they absolutely should be in the IMEC. I think everyone's getting on the hysteria of them being moved down to 3A, when we forget 2 years ago, West Meck's an 8-win team. They played West Charlotte in the third round of the 4A playoffs. These are two programs that I think still have a lot of great athletes coming through that area, that west side. I mean, I think, with West Charlotte being 10 minutes away, I mean, we're aware of some of the talent that they're getting in there. A lot of excitement. I mean, you talk about, even the basketball player, Patrick Williams, getting drafted not too long ago, bringing that pride into the program. You look at, even with getting a state championship coach and our fellow co-host, Sam Griner over there, all of the moves. And I mean, again, you talk about some of the operational stuff with the new school being built. All of these things are that school and that program being on the way up. So I don't think them staying in the same conference that they're in is going to be anything wrong. I think the same for West Meck. I mean, while you'll see a dip a little bit in the population, these programs, definitely have a lot of great athletes and a lot of good talent over there. These kids are familiar with a lot of these kids that attend these other schools. And I think logistically, it won't be bad. I mean, West Charlotte's been there. It's 10 minutes away. West Meck isn't much further. I think that them being in the IMAC, while it may be challenging in some ways, is going to be great for them. And in the 3A playoffs, they're going to flourish because no teams are out there comparable to their conference.
Yep. Gary, very few people in Charlotte have the experience and the historical depth that you have, especially in regards to West Charlotte and West Meck. What's your take on this?
I think about especially West Charlotte, the tradition they have. They have 3 state championship coaches, and Bruce Harding, Tommy Knotts. I don't think Rudy ever got it, but they were always competing deep in the playoffs. And then in basketball, with Rusty White and the late Coach McCullough. I mean, there's so much tradition in West Charlotte. And like Grice said, they're building a whole new school. So they're going to have the best facilities of any school in CMS in another year. And I think that in itself is going to increase their school population. They're rivals with Vance, with Hopewell, with North Meck, that area, and including West Meck, the rivals with them. I just think it's something wrong with West Charlotte not being in the IMAC. I think that's just I'm a traditionalist just because, that was my rival when I was in high school at North Meck, was West Charlotte. And I think they should stay in the IMAC.
Gary, you make a very good point about the new facilities and just everything with that new school at West Charlotte. I've seen it. I've seen the plans. I've got a friend who's heading up the construction, so it is going to be a phenomenal complex. And you're absolutely correct about that. And obviously, we know our very own Sam Griner is going to do his thing, and then everybody's going to want to come be a part of it. Coach, you've coached against these teams, so you know the landscape very well as well. I'm interested to get your take, being from an opposing school.
Well, I'll defer to those guys. They've been around a lot longer in this area than I have, but I do think there's, something to be said for the tradition of West Charlotte in that conference. And heck, put West Charlotte in there, West Meck, Huff, Mallard Creek. You can have the all turf league. You got all these guys that have field turf now. So, you can have a facility. I can't believe
our park doesn't have any turf yet.
No, we're down at the bottom of the list.
Oh, they would write letters if they got turf. Hey, look at that brand new turf. Yeah, they'd kill them.
I bet Myers Park would probably kill for a turf practice field about now. That's just a thought. That's just me thinking out loud.
Just a bit.
What's that, Coach?
Just a bit.
That's a different story. I'm not trying to open up a can of worms. Hey, we got this last topic here, and Gary, I'm going to start with you because you're kind of like me. We're the old crew now. At least that's what I've been told with all these gray hairs I've got. I've seen the memes on Facebook and social media, Instagram, of this History Channel thing with Tom Brady and Drew Brees looking like old grandpas, and I had to get you to laugh. But here's our question: will Tom Brady reach the Super Bowl this year? Why or why not, Gary?
I'm going to say no, and it's not because of Tom Brady. I just don't think the Bucs run the ball enough, and Tom Brady is a play-action quarterback, and if there's no run threat, then the play-action doesn't work. So I'm going to say no because, they have all those pretty weapons out on the perimeter with AB and Godwin and Evans and Gronk. And they just seem like they don't understand that, throwing the ball 40 times in the playoffs is a recipe for losing. You still got to run the ball. And I just don't think that's in Bruce Arians' mindset of running the ball. And that's not advantageous to Tom Brady. I think if they run the ball, they got a chance. But if they're not running the ball and they expect him to drop back and throw that ball 40, 45 times a game, I can't see him winning the Super Bowl. I can't even see him getting to the Super Bowl.
Coach? I don't know what make the Super Bowl is the question. To be honest with you, I think they've got a really good shot. And I think one of the reasons is in this COVID era, they're not going to go to New Orleans this week and have to deal with the crowd noise in New Orleans. And yeah, they got to deal with the cold in Green Bay, but again, they don't have to deal with the Lambeau Field crowd. And I think that's really an important factor. And, being a Washington football fan, I watched them up close last weekend, and, I almost said the Redskins, but Washington has had a outstanding defense all year long, and Tom Brady absolutely carved them up the other night.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for Taylor Heineke, having literally the game of his life, that game's not even close because, defensively, Washington couldn't stop them at all. But again, I think the biggest factor that helps them is the fact that, these aren't true road games like normal road playoff games are.
Yeah, before I go to you, Grice, and I'm getting a little bit older. I've realized that I'm probably closer to Social Security now than I was turning 21, 25 years old. So, I see things from a different standpoint. And, Tom Brady, he's just a little bit younger than me. So, I find that I pull for the old guys and he's still kind of closer to my age. So I want them to win. But, Coach, I listened to your rationale and you make some great points about it. Grice, you're the young guy of the group and you probably understand these young guys a whole lot more than I do. So I'm anxious to hear what you got to say.
No, I think, with Tom Brady, he absolutely, will make the Super Bowl. I read a good article today talking about in this COVID era that the only home field advantage is weather. I mean, you don't have any fans. So when you put out the situation of a true advantage, it's teams being able to play in a cold weather environment. Who's probably done the most and been the greatest in the cold weather environment, and that's Tom Brady. I think if you look at, them playing Washington, I thought that would be the opportunity to be their biggest stumbling block. You see a defensive line as great as, as Washington's and how they were trying to get after him, and I thought did a decent job, but he, was able to still do enough things, and they're able to run the ball enough, Gary. It's enough running is good. You don't have to run a lot, but enough running is good to get it done. And I thought they were able to do that with Fournette against Washington. So even in those cold weather environments, let's not forget, some of those, New England, years, even the game against the Rams, when he needs to, he'll get an empty and he'll throw the ball. I mean, you watch some of those old games, he's still able to get that done with the quick passing game. The bigger thing for me is, can Bruce Arians get out of the way a little bit, let Tom Brady do and put him in a position to do what he does best? I think they can beat Green Bay. I'm a 49ers fan, and I don't have any faith in Green Bay in those big games, and they're not a physical team.
No.
That's teams don't make it.
I don't have any Green Bay either.
You're right, but hey, let's not forget where Tom Brady came from, and you mentioned it, Grice. He played in that cold weather. Dale, you popped up a comment just a second ago. If that's the only way to go is find a ticket. I'd love to hear your take.
That was seriously to be funny. I have to agree that there is no such thing as a home field advantage this season. I think as a professional player, they go into a venue, and if it's quiet and you don't have that extra element, then it's just like going anywhere else, and it's only going to be the weather. And I can't disagree with, that's not going to impact Tom Brady, but will it impact the rest of the team?
Yes.
While Tom Brady can handle it, can the rest of the team handle it? That's a big advantage for Green Bay,
All I've got to say is there's going to be Pewter in the Super Bowl playing some blood red. That's all I got to say.
I just wanted to be funny with that comment.
And I think the blood red is going to beat the Pewter in the Super Bowl. That's just my opinion. I know some of you guys do sports betting, but that's my opinion. I got news where you guys were talking that the Lake Norman Charter School Board voted unanimously. This is not I don't have it confirmed, but I'm getting reports the Lake Norman Charter School Board voted unanimously to allow their teams in season to complete play. That includes basketball and swimming and all those other sports to finish playing. So there's another nearby school districts going opposite from what CMS is doing. Guys, I want to thank everybody for coming on. I feel like I'm a running back going to the end zone with the football. I'm scoring a touchdown. I want to give it to my lineman, let you guys spike it. This is awesome. This is the best show. People tell me all the time, you guys like the best crew. This is the best show high school-wise in the Carolinas. I hear it all the time, and it's only because of you guys. So I want to say thank you. Sam, I know you're watching, man. I hate you couldn't be here because I want to get your thoughts on playing, man, because I know you were all excited before when you were getting away from Grice and Malley Creek and all those advance, and now you're right back with them.
Sam might have to go to the back of the bus now.
Yeah. Well, we picked him in the back of the bus. He didn't like that. Remember, he didn't like that.
Scott did all right.
So Sam, I know you were really worried about me putting Chadwick in. He said, Scott, you cannot do his final piece. He said, don't let Chadwick do it. The final thoughts. So
Oh no, you should let him do it.
I know. I said I wouldn't let. I got no. Sam's my guy. I said I can't let Chadwick do the final thoughts. So we're gonna put Grice in the one shot, and Grice gives us his final thoughts.
My hair, I got the beard hair, but I don't have the grinder, fine hair with the product in it. So I'll do what I can. But the bigger thing, man, with everything that's come up, as it relates to CMS today, and it was a full day of news and sports. My charge is to my fellow coaches. It's resiliency. We talk about that and expect that and demand that of our players. Going forward with everything that we have and everything that's on the plate in front of us, we've got to be resilient. We've got to show our kids that, hey, no matter the situation, no matter the obstacle, we're still going to press forward and put you guys in the best situation. We're going to reach out and ensure that you guys' mental health or whatever it is that you need, we still have you even from a remote place. And we still are going to set a plan with our coaches and that our parents are made aware that we're going to keep you safe when we're allowed to come back. And that whenever they allow us to get back on the football field, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we're winning games and doing it in a safely and sportsmanlike fashion. When we look at CMS, my biggest thing and my biggest charge as a stakeholder in that is courage. I think, Superintendent Ernest Wilson, did a great job in trying to, understand that. But I think too often we're in such a reactive mindset that, I want to see some form of proactiveness coming from these bodies, these governing bodies, if you will. Too many times we're thinking about, oh goodness, what could happen or liability. And I want someone to take charge. And I pray and just, ask for, somebody to step up and say, hey, we want to be proactive. We want to do everything we can to put things in place to allow our kids to compete safely. Because it has been done, as the neighboring states have shown us. We just have to be proactive in ensuring that everyone's covered, everyone has the tools necessary to be successful, and we all can go forward and get this thing back on the road. So hopefully we have that, from a lot of these people that are around us. We're all, as coaches, willing to step forward. As athletic directors, we're willing to step forward and make that happen. We love you. We would love to support you in any of those ways. We just need some transparency and some communication. So definitely reach out to us, and we hopefully we can get this thing back on.
Sam, boy, you better hurry up and get back.
I'm ready. I'm mid-season form right now, baby.
A whole lot of words too.
Get the graphic girl that does the all these little intros into the segments. Yeah. Get her to do one of a little cartoon guy that looks like Sam on a bus, and he gets thrown under the bus. Between
that and doom and gloom, we
can definitely do that. Coach Chadwick, thanks for being on. I know when you asked Mrs. Chadwick for permission to join us tonight, you didn't think you were going to still be on with us at 10 o'clock. I know you didn't, but thanks a lot.
She's walked out here about 3 times asking me if I was done yet.
I appreciate it. Guys, it was really cool getting the football guys back. A lot of people have been asking, when are you guys coming back? We'll be back sometime in February, maybe like the 2nd or 3rd week of February. We'll do a preview of the season. We'll let Chris and those guys do their preseason player of the year. I know everybody wants to know about the Heisman Watch. That was such a popular segment. We're going to have that back. Alex will be on the show with his musings from Riley and his great memory and everything else. And Gary Alex will be on our basketball show Monday at 7 o'clock. So you guys be sure to tune in for that. So thanks for watching. I'm Langston. That's Gary. That's Chris Hughes. I'm so happy that you're back. That's Grice. That's Alex. That's Dale. That's my man Scott Chadwick. We are Talking Preps. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for joining us, Scott.
Hey.